welcome to episode 76 of the Jez and Friends podcast. Special guest of the podcast is Max Becker, who hosts his own podcast, interviewing pro sports people, their careers, struggles and laughs along the way. He also hosts a show on SEN called The Kids Edition with AFLW star Ellie Blackburn, who played with Emma Carney, who all the listeners know, and that's starting this Sunday. And Max is only in year 9, I'm in year 12, so how's it going, Max?
Thanks, man. It's great to be here, Jerry, and yeah, it's going well. I'm pretty busy at the moment, obviously, with the Kids Edition starting up this Sunday. Fair bit of preparation going to that, I'm sure. You're a great interviewer, so I'm sure we'll get into that. And, you know, Sporting Max podcast is at its peak at the moment, coming up to episode 100. Hoping to book in Josh Giddey.
Oh, Josh Giddey.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing, mate, Josh Giddey. What he's done so far with Oklahoma is incredible, and if you land him, that's going to be amazing. I'm going to tell all my mates. But obviously, good segue. Let's start with your podcasting journey. So, obviously, you started similar to me during 2020 when the major lockdowns happened. So, what inspired you to create the Sporting Max podcast in the first place?
First of all, I started off, I think it was April 2020. And I saw my dad's old microphone. He was going to create a business podcast, but never got around to it. So I said, I'm going to have a sports podcast. And then so my uncle came up with the idea, you could interview people. And so originally his best mate used to play in the NBL for the Brisbane Bulldogs, Lee Jecker, under NBL legend coach Joey Wright, who I've also had on the podcast later on down the track in, I think it was episode 25. But then from Lee, I sort of used him as my first point of call for contacts and getting other guests. So then his best mate was the Boston Celtics scout, European scout Benes Makavicius, who is also the Lithuanian national team assistant coach. And then from there, it kind of goes on once, I guess. And then also I've got my dad's cousin, his best mates with Steele Sidebottom. So I guess play that to my advantage. And I get him on, and then once you get a couple of good names on, you can start to message people, go, hey, I've had Steele Sidebottom on, I've had the Boston Celtics European scout on Benes Makavicius. You want to come on, and people will see it and go, this kid's doing all right. He's had these names on, I want to be a part of this. And then once you start working up the levels of people who you're getting, then obviously you can go up to someone like, I don't know, Craig Hutchison or Eddie Maguire and say, I've had Mark Howard, I've had Chad Corns, I've had Steele Sidebottom, do you want to come on?
That is incredible, mate. Honestly, applaud you for that. And you're not, phased by your age. You're emailing them and, knocking on the door, and that's what we want to, see from us, young prodigies, up and coming media, people. But with that, I want to touch on the guests you've had, maybe. Who's your top 3 guests you've had where you've learnt the most out of some of their stories, maybe?
Gazy was a bit annoyed. Andrew Gaze was a bit annoyed at me at the launch party because he was there, and I got asked about who my top guests were, and so I said Craig Hutchison because he's my boss now, obviously. And then
True.
I said Eddie Maguire. I said Gerard Whateley, and I said And then I said shout out to Lee Jecker, who was just my first episode. And then Drewy shouts out from the back of the room, what's going on? So I'm standing there. I'm like, mate, I didn't know you were here. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, mate. So obviously Andrew Gaze is one of my top ones. He's someone who I've looked up to for a long time. So Andrew Gaze, Gerard Whateley, who I've had on recently, he's such a great person. He puts aside so much time for other people. And he's caring and supportive of everyone. Eddie Maguire, because
love that episode.
Eddie's he's just amazing, and the insights into his life as a young kid and growing up writing in the newspaper under his dad's name. I think where did he grow up? In Campbellfield, Cranbourne. Yeah, Broad Meadows. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. And then so his insight into his life, it kind of gave me a bit of, okay, he's done this, I can go on and do this. And that's the same thing with Craig Hutchison. And you hear from those kinds of guys. And Gerard Whateley's no different. I mean, he didn't go to uni. He just went straight into a media career, got a cadetship with the Herald Sun.
That is incredible, mate. And with the Eddie Maguire story, I listened to it the other day. Like the fact that he was, working at 13, like with I think it was a statistician role with his brother or something,
Yes.
interviewing players down the. It's just incredible how like the journey goes, and like similar with that, like your story with Craig Hutchinson, which we'll touch on now. So obviously you emailed him, got him on your show, and it's led you to your like very own breakfast show with Ellie. So do you want to talk me through how you kind of like emailed Craig and how that unfolded?
So I was just looking through any guests I could get, just find emails, phone numbers, who I can call, who I can message on Instagram, who I can message through their phone number or email them. So I found Craig Hutchinson's email to Croc Media. So I thought, I'll give this a try. I wasn't expecting anything. I went out in Melbourne that night to the footy and then left my phone at home. And then early in the morning, I had to go into my uncle's office because I had a interview with Kobe Bryant security guard John Stern, and he's the LA Lakers security guard. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And then I got back home, checked my phone, and on your phone, you know how there's like the mail and there's like a little sign. I thought, this will be nothing. So go into my phone, it says Craig Hutchison, and it's like I'm like, oh my goodness. And he's like, hi Max, I'd love to be a part of your podcast. I'll put you in contact with my assistant. Amanda. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So after talking with her for over a couple of days, we sorted out a time. I think it was in July last year. And that was the 50th episode. So then obviously that got a bit of coverage over his sounding board with Damien Barrett. As Damo likes to call it, I haven't caught up with him yet. I'm going to interview him at the end of this AFL season. As he likes to call it, the thawing of Craig Hutchison, apparently. Through media, and so they had a bit of a chat about me, and Hutchie seemed pretty good. He said it was his ambition to get me on SEN on air. So I thought, well, that's pretty good. And then I got mentioned again a month later when Damon rang up thawing of Craig Hutchison again when he was on Dylan Buckley's podcast.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then so after I interviewed him originally, I kept emailing him and his assistant going, this is my best audience I've ever had. This is how many listens it's got. Thank you so much for putting aside some time to come and have a chat on. I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful for you coming on to have a chat. And then I did that maybe twice, maybe once every 2 months. And then it got to October last year. And I emailed his assistant, Amanda. I said, hi, Amanda. If there's any opportunities at SEN just to do some work experience, let me know. I'd love the opportunity. She said, hi, Max, we've got a lot of those kind of requests, but I'll keep you in mind. I said, okay, thanks. So then early December, I thought, all right, I said, I want to get the Sporting Max podcast on the SEN app. So originally, I wasn't just trying to get it on air. I was just trying to get it on the SEN app. And so I emailed Craig Hutchison. I said, hi, Craig, here's a pitch. I can get these sponsors for the podcast all lined up. I can... I know what guests I've got coming up for each of the next weeks. I'd just love to get the Sporting Max podcast on the SEN app. So he forwarded on to the National Radio Director, Sam, and she asked to have a meeting with me. So we had a meeting, and I walked in there, and she goes to me, she goes, all right, she goes, what do you want out of this? And before I even started talking, she goes, we'll give you a 7 a.m. till 8 a.m. spot on Sunday mornings for Sporting Max to be on. And I said, I said, that's awesome. She goes, and there will be, a swapping of money there. And I thought, all right, how much am I going to have to pay you? And so she goes, nah, she goes, and you'll get paid this much money. And I thought, what? I'm like, this is unbelievable.
How much?
No, I won't say that.
No,
not that much, mate. And then as that went on, I got an opportunity on Sporting Max. I went to the NBL for a Melbourne United game as Craig Hutchison owns part of Melbourne United. And so I went down courtside. I know a couple of the owners, sort of family friends and things like that through my dad and my uncle. So I had a good chat with them. Surprisingly, it was against the Perth Wildcats. It was a packed arena. There were a lot of old NBL players there. So there was Nigel Purchase, there was Mark Bradkey, And so I went up to Craig Hutchison. He was there with his partner, Claire, and his son, Nicholas. And I just went up to him. I said, "Hi, Craig," and he turned around. And his wife was like in shock. And I said, "Thank you so much for the opportunity that you've given me to be live on air, or not live, sorry, on air every Sunday morning for Sporting Max." And he said, "No worries." And then he explained to his wife who I was, and his partner, not his wife, who I was. And yeah, it kind of went from there. And then so the Sporting Max podcast now live every Sunday, 7 to 8 a.m. on SEN. Planning, I think we're up to episode 90 released. I've got up to episode 94 banked up so far. I've got one interview with St Kilda St Rowan Marshall, so I'm a massive Saints fan.
Oh, mate.
And so I had Rowan Marshall, and this is a bit of a funny story because I had him lined up. He came in. She said, "All right, you've got him for half an hour." I said, "All right, that's perfect." And then so we got along so well. We talked for 15 minutes, and then we only had 15 minutes to record, right? So then we're like in the middle of a conversation, and this person comes in, and he's like looking at him while trying to like half like talk at the same time. And then so he's like, "Oh, Max," he's like, "I'm so sorry, mate." He's like, "I got to go for a massage." and then he goes, "Mate," he goes, "I really want to catch up, so I've just got to quickly finish up that interview, another 5-10 minutes with him." And then I also had Nazar Wanganeen-Malera, obviously the son of Terry Malera and nephew of Gavin Wanganeen. Yeah, so he was awesome. And then between those two interviews, there was a period of time where they were going to try and find Nazar. So when they were trying to find Nazar, there was no one there, and I'm just sitting here in this room on Zoom, and I could hear this voice talking in the background. And I thought, "All right, who's that?" And so I started going, hello, anyone there? Hello, anyone there? And I kept listening for a minute or so. And after I listened for a minute or so, I thought, "All right, I'm just going to go, hello, anyone there? Hello, anyone there?" Like a couple of times, still no reply. So I waited another minute or so, kept hearing this chatter. And this time I'm really focused on, who it was, who it could be. And I thought, bugger it. I'm like, this is Brett Ratton. So I started going, "Rats. I'm like, "Rats, is that you? Rats, is that you?" And I just hear this little, "Yep," out of the corner of the screen, and he pops his head in. He's like, "G'day, mate, how are you?" And so that was pretty unbelievable for me. You just never know what's going to happen.
That is incredible, mate. I think I'm in awe of what you're doing right now. Like, you've interviewed two St Kilda players, and you're a St Kilda supporter. So it's funny how the connections you've lined up through your podcast journey. So yeah, and right now, how many episodes are you up to?
90. So I've got 94, and then banked up at the moment. I've got it up until 96 scheduled.
That is well on task. And you do this once a week, is that right?
So usually I'll try and do 1 or 2 interviews a week.
Yep.
It depending on who I've got. So who did I have today? I had, Ben Ayer from the Cairns Taipans?
I'm not too much of an NBL fan, but
yeah. So he was one of 3 players this year. He came off the bench as a replacement for Scott Machado early this season. He played all right, and then it was one of their last games of the season against Melbourne United, top of the ladder. They weren't in a chance to be in the finals. So he was in the starting 5 or coming off the bench. Whether or not he was in the starting 5 doesn't really matter, besides the point. So he came on, I think it was in the second quarter, and just dominated, blew the roof off John Cain Arena. And everyone in John Cain Arena was like, what, this kid is just insane. So he had 20 points, 10 assists, and became level with Bryce Cotton and Vic Law as the only people this season to do that.
That is incredible. You know the stats as well. So I guess with that, obviously you're in year 9 and school starting to ramp up, as I know it myself. Where do you see yourself maybe 3 years time looking at the courses you want to kind of undertake maybe at university level to increase that media knowledge, mate?
Well, I've had a chat with a couple of people, obviously my dad and my uncle, and I've also had a chat with guys like Gerard Whateley and someone like Kath Loughnane from Fox Footy. So Kath Loughnane, I spoke to her on Wednesday night, and she was a great help for me personally in sort of figuring out whether to go to uni or not. I mean, Gerard Whateley didn't go to uni, went straight into a cadetship. I guess what I'm doing now at SEN is similar to a
Similar to
cadetship.
that, yeah.
So I'm just exploring opportunities at the moment. I want to see how this media goes for me in year 9, and then obviously I really want to get good grades, great grades, good grades for school. So then I can progress into year 12. Once I finish year 12, hopefully I've got a decent media career there for me. And if I think it's good to go to uni. I want to go to uni because it depends. You say you go to Fox Footy and you might have to have a uni degree or something. That journalism or media degree, you've always got there. I mean, so you pretty much can't lose on a job. Where if you've got the knowledge and experience, but you just don't have that journalism degree, so then that's ultimately what I want to do. And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good at the moment, and yeah, I work hard in school, so that's what's best for me.
We love to hear that, mate. Consistency is key, and I remember we had that chat just before recording. Do you want to talk me through your subjects you're doing and how that kind of maps out and helps your like future self?
Yeah, so for my future, I've selected in year 9 my electives as media, um, Indonesian because I love my Indonesian, and because it's a dominant language in the world. Um, Basketball's big over in Indonesia and those kinds of countries. Um, and so for me, it's like if you want to explore commentating or journalism overseas, you need to know how to speak that language to commentate and things like that. So that was um, one of the most factors for me. And then also money talks, which is business management and personal finance for me. Business management is something I really want to get into, to learn how to run a business or a media company, and things like that.
For sure, mate. And I'm doing media and business management for VC, and I can assure you, you learn so much off Business Max, especially like how to start one, like how to manage employees, um, managing like shareholder expectations, and I'm sure you'll learn about that um in more detail in a few years' time. So, yeah, props to you and keep it up. Love this, mate. And
Thanks,
with
mate.
this, no worries. And with this, media journey, um, how important, like, as you know, is it like for you to be yourself and express your own opinions, and just be your true self, not like hide under the shadows, I guess.
Especially I've learned this off Gerard Whateley and Kath last week, um, and over the journey of the podcast, um, to take pieces of other people's and other media persons' styles, but make it your own style. So no one's going to hire another Brian Taylor, and no one's going to hire another Gerard Whateley. So I've got to be myself. I might take a bit of Gerard Whateley's work and maybe a little bit of type of terminology he uses because I think he's great at that. I might take some of, let's say, Liam Stanamaria from the NBL is someone who I really look up to. He's great in commentary, and an expert analyst. So I might take a bit of his style, and then also someone like a Craig Hutchison or Eddie Maguire too. So ultimately, for me, it's about being my own self, all the time in interviews and things like that, and enjoying myself.
And with that as well, mate, another follow up question. Like, you know how you ask interview questions and sometimes you get like a short response, for example, like like a 2 word response or like one sentence. How do you like kind of deal with that and, ask a follow on question?
So for those kind of interviews, when you've got someone, well, it might be a rookie AFL player who's
Yeah, yeah.
not
Without
experienced
the
in media,
experience.
or yeah, hasn't talked to a lot of media. That's really difficult for a media person. Because I find it difficult for me, or I know you might find it difficult for yourself too. But the key is preparation for your interviews, you have to have as many questions as you need to be able to have a go and, be prepared for these kind of interviews. It doesn't matter if you've got someone like a Josh Giddey who, can talk fairly well, but you still have to be prepared in the case that he's only replying in those short sentences, so you got to be really prepared for each interview.
Awesome. And with the interviews, how do you prepare for them? Like, how does it work for you? Do you kind of read the script to yourself, like, let's say an hour beforehand, or like listen to a prior podcast and like take 3 pointers from that, or how do you do it, mate?
So sometimes I don't like listening to myself a whole lot, to be completely honest with you. So I might have a listen every now and then just to see, where I can improve. Something that I've specifically tried to work on in the past in my interviews and is saying in interviews, because you listen to all the best media people that they say they just keep talking fluently, and that's something that I strive towards. And yeah.
You're certainly doing a lot better, mate. With, I think, the Corey McKernan episode, you said way less ums than, let's say, a year ago, and that's always good to aim to improve. And, Corey McKernan talks a lot about North Melbourne in the 90s, and that was good to listen to as well, mate. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then so when I prepare for a podcast, I usually go over my questions that I've got, and then also it keys making conversation in interviews, so it's listening to their answer and then following that up with other questions, and going off script. And I learned that from Mark Howard in episode 49.
Yeah, Mark's great, because like with his interviews, he always like does a part A and part B, and it's funny how he segues his episodes, and yeah, you can learn a lot off him as well. Like obviously with your interview with him. And aside from media, do you want to talk us through your other hobbies, like with basketball? I know you love your NBL, your NBA as well.
Yeah. So I love my NBL and NBA. I'm particularly focused on all the Aussie guys and the Australian Boomers particularly. So I love Josh Giddey. I love seeing what he's doing in the NBA at the moment. Obviously, he's back in Melbourne at the moment. So I don't want to get an interview with him while he's in Melbourne because it's going to cost you a heap of money. So then I'll wait till he's back in the States, have an interview with him and see what he can do this year. Paddy Mills, unfortunately, with the Nets.
I got swept.
Got swept. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. The Boomers are coming to Melbourne July, I think it is. So I look forward to see who's playing in that. Most likely someone like Chris Golding, Aaron Baines, to look forward to there. And also Matthew Dellavedova. We can't leave him out of conversation.
Can't leave Matt. Yeah.
And then, so I'm a massive NBL fan. I watch a lot more NBL than I do NBA. The Sydney Kings Illawarra Hawks semi-finals on at the moment. So after this, I'll enjoy watching the rest of that game, as it's going to be a great series.
No, it's really good, mate. What about the NBA? Who do you follow in that?
Used to follow Philadelphia 76ers and everything with Ben went down, and they got James Harden, they got rid of Butler, and then Josh Giddey coming through. I don't really go for a team, but if I had to pick, I'd go for Oklahoma City Thunder. What about you?
Oh, Philly for life, mate.
Yeah?
Yeah. We won against Toronto today. Very happy because Joel Embiid's got like this finger injury, so
yeah, Harden stood out too.
Yeah, it'll be tough against. Can't remember right now who we're playing. You might know, Max.
Yeah, I think they're coming. Who are they coming up against? I know Golden State's coming up against either Minnesota or was it Minnesota or the Grizzlies? So Philly will be coming up against
got Milwaukee, I think.
Yes, and Philly will be coming up against someone like Atlanta. Are they in?
Oh, I think they're out. Anyway,
they're out. Probably.
That's
anyway,
bad.
yeah. Anyway,
yeah, I'm a bad supporter. This is like a spotlight segment, so I wanted to touch on like I guess the sports and teams you follow elsewhere as well, like aside from NBA, like we love sports and all good. Do you
Yeah, all
want to
good.
touch
Yeah,
on
good.
your love for like St Kilda and do you follow any other sports as such?
Yes, I'm a massive Saints fan. Grew up watching them from the age of, I don't know, as little as I can remember. Favorite Saint of all times, Nick Rewalt. Um, I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting him on. Um, and yeah, other than that, I love my basketball. I play basketball down here on the Bellarine Peninsula with a couple of my mates. And yeah, and then I do some long distance running, not for a club or anything, but just by myself. I like my running.
That's really good, mate. Are you a point guard, shooting guard, or what
Yeah,
position?
I'm more of a point guard. I'm pretty short compared to all my mates. So I actually that's a bit of an understatement. I'm really short.
That's
So
right. I'm pretty short as well. I'm
so
like
all my
five
so
seven.
I'm yeah. So I just like kind of I just bring the ball up the court. I like to cut a lot. Um, I'm the kind of player I shoot maybe 4 or 5 times a game. I won't put up too many shots. Um, pass the ball around, and just if I can make space inside the key, um, for my teammates to cut through, and you don't get an easy bucket on the drive.
That's great, mate. All the cuts are important. Gotta maneuver the defenders around. Anyway, another thing I wanted to touch on is obviously I love my running, and last year probably one of the biggest sporting events happened at the Olympics with like Pete Bowl coming fourth in the 800-meter final. Do you remember that moment? Because it was one of the most televised events in our sports, well, like yeah, history. So maybe talk us through that.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually watching it live, um, but I just remember seeing on all the socials and on YouTube and things like that, his race, and he just was, I guess, a bit of a surprise, wasn't it for everyone? He wasn't like the favorite or anything like that, but um, it was just remarkable to see him come through and win for the Aussies.
100%, mate. And now we'll move on to some mixed segments. So this is like about some fun. So I guess yeah, let's kick off with music, Max. What do you listen to? Do get yourself ready for like an interview? Any artists in particular?
Surprisingly, I don't actually listen to a lot of music,
Fair enough.
but if
Podcasts.
if I do listen to music, I like listening to The Living End.
Yep. What type of
Yeah, with
genre is
Chris
that?
Chen. It's like they're Australian, so it's like Chris Chenny. Do you know him?
Nah, sorry.
No, it's all right. So they're kind of like rock kind of style. It's kind of a different style. They do all different kinds of songs, but they're a great band.
That's good. And give us some podcast recommendations while you're at it.
The Sounding Board with Hutchie and Damo, one to definitely recommend. Um, what else have I listened to? Howie Games. He just had Nick Rewald on, so I saw that today. I'm like, oh, I'm like
Ooh,
this is
I
good.
gotta listen to that
And
episode.
then who else? Oh, NBL Pocket Podcasts. Not a lot of people may know him. I've been on his podcast. I think he does a great job of it. Um, with everything he talks about. Um, yes, that's just a couple of podcasts that I personally like to listen to, and then alongside other podcasts that some of my guests have been on too.
And just quickly, a spin off question with podcasts. How important is it to, I guess, maximize that space with also like people call it the vodcast. So, like, with the video aspect, how like we're talking on Zoom now, because you got to be marketable on kind of all platforms, as you know.
Yeah, so I learned from Corey Homicide Williams um, early on that you have to dress well. It doesn't matter if you're in Zoom or things like that. You always have to dress well. So I wear my shirt every interview I do, or if I go out to an NBL game or into the SEN studios, always wear a shirt and pants and things like that. Um, and then apart from dressing nicely with a shirt and pants, to maximize the space that you've got, because there's so much reach out there on social media and through YouTube and things like that. You really want to get your podcast or whatever you're you've got audio wise or visual wise into as many streaming platforms as you can. So I've got mine on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, which is like who I stream through, like so it's like your Podbean, Podfire, and all those kind of things, and then TuneIn, which is like just sort of a basic podcast thing.
100%, mate. Keep it up. And this one I call the money segment. So I'm sure you've had some, interesting guests along the way. But I guess for yourself, are there any funny stories from your podcast episodes or just from life you want to share to the listeners?
You've got me there. That's a good question.
That's all right.
Make me think a bit. Well, a couple of funny moments just from the launch party we recently had at the SEN Studios for the Kids Edition. Andy Bass standing up the back of the room. I haven't had him on yet, so I've asked him a couple of times, and he said no. So I'm like, come on, Andy, just come on, Andy. All right. And then so he's standing up the back of the room with Andrew Gaze. Andrew Gaze has come up, and he goes, "You haven't got me on yet." And I stood there, and I had like a millisecond to think, right? So I went straight back at him. I said, "Mate, I've asked you a million times." I said, "and you've just told me no." And it's everyone in the room just laugh. And then he keeps shouting out, "Why isn't Andrew? We've got a show to prepare for," because it was like half hour before their show on SEN.
Yeah.
He's going, "We've got a show to prepare for," things like that, just being funny, which is Andy Marr, So I thought that was pretty funny. That was a great day. What are some other funny stories? I know Hutchie's got a lot of great stories. Especially, I love the story of the relationship between himself and Gerard Whateley. Early on, together at the Herald Sun, they were doing a cadetship together. They had a bit of an argument, separated for years, and then obviously got back together at SEN and have now got a really great friendship.
That's amazing, mate. Two awesome tales, and I'm sure the listeners will get around it. If we want to do journalism, books are pretty important, and movies and docos. So, do you have any like quick book or movie documentary recommendations for the listeners?
A book, Black Caviar by Gerard Whateley. I think he's won an award for that one too. Hoop Dreams Down Under by Matt Logue. He's an awesome writer. I know he's got an Australian Boomers book coming soon, and Nick Rewalt's book. I love his book about his story from Tassie to the AFL.
100%. Go give it a go, listeners. As you know, quick hands is a quick handball, so 5 quick questions. Pineapple and pizza, yes or no, Max?
No.
No.
What about you? What
about me? Yes.
Yes, wow.
I just gotta have a bit of sweet and savoury, so if it doesn't work for you, that's right.
Yeah.
Are you an English or maths person?
Tough question. I'd say both, but if I have to go with one, I probably like maths more.
Ooh, yep, you love your stats.
What about you, English or maths?
Oh, I met Bruce when I was younger for the stats, but now English, mate.
Yeah.
Favorite celebrity? You've met plenty.
I'm gonna say Gerard Whateley.
Amazing. I'm gonna have to listen to that episode because it's probably got a lot I can learn from, and as you said, he's your favorite celebrity. So
yeah, he's gave heaps of advice and a lot of good advice too.
Where's your favorite place to visit in the world? Have you been traveling much?
Yeah, so I've been to Bali, France, and things like that. But probably I really want to go to America, so that's next on my list.
Awesome. Maybe Wells Fargo Center down in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much you use your phone, but us teenagers use our phone a fair bit. So what's your most used app on your phone?
I use my phone a fair bit, but when I do so, it's probably more so for the podcast or work and things like that. So my most used apps are probably Instagram because of what I post and how I'm trying to email and message people to try and get them on.
I'd have to say the same, mate. Sometimes it's for personal use as well. Like a lot of people, um, and I guess what's like one piece of advice someone has given you that you want to reiterate again? Because I think you said this before, but it's really important.
It doesn't have anything to do specifically with media, but Josh Giddey's agent, Daniel Moldovan, he said in the agent industry, it's all about connections. And same thing Gerard Whateley told me, it's all about connections. It's who you know. It's your contacts. It's referring to your contacts and the people who you know to try and get opportunities. And that's probably the best advice got alongside Mark Howard's advice of, going a bit off script and, having conversation and also preparation.
Love that, mate. Connections is always important. It's not what you know, it's who you know, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
And I reckon for you should create a LinkedIn account. I'm not sure you have one now.
No,
It's
no.
good to highlight your experiences. I'm sure Craig and the rest of our SCN crew can get you sorted with that, mate. Just another quick one on SCN quickly. Like, what's it like with the studios? Like, how does that work when you're recording the podcast? Want to touch on that briefly?
Yeah. So basically, when you go into the studios, you walk in. So downstairs is the main studios where anyone who's on live, it goes in. So Dwayne Russell, Andy Marr, Gerard Whateley, Andrew Gaze, those kinds of guys, Sam Edmund, just to name a few. David King as well. Sorry, got to mention him.
North legend.
Yeah. And then so you go upstairs, and they've got what are they? We've got 5 studios upstairs, or maybe more. So I've recorded a couple of interviews there so far. I've always been in Studio 5. So what happens is guests will come in, you'll sit in the studios with them in front of the mic. You'll have a panelist just to record for you, sitting there in the studio with you. You record your 4 segments, ultimately, which is for SEN. So you got to have the 4 segments because then you have ad breaks in between and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's got to be timed really well. So I try and time the first 3 segments to perfection, and then with my 4th segment, if I go a bit over time, I just cut it back a bit for radio and then release the entire thing on my podcast.
That is very smartly timed, mate. So the 4 segments, and then I've heard the ads as well. You've got a good, advertising voice as well. Sorry, so got the whole setup going, mate. That's really good.
Yes. Well, I don't even know if I've heard it. I don't think I've heard it yet, but I got sent a script the other night from Sam, the national radio director at SEM. She goes, "Can you just record this for me for the kids edition and get it back to me by tonight?" And so she's doing the same thing with Ellie Blackburn too. And Ellie and I, we only met at the launch party, but we get along pretty well. So I'm really excited to work with her for the kids edition this year. And so I recorded the script. It was like just explaining what the kids edition is. It was pouring out on SEN, and I haven't heard it yet, but I can't wait to hear it.
And just quickly, do you want to plug when the kids edition is starting, how long will go for, kids will call, and just how the program works, mate?
Yeah, so basically the kids edition is something for kids on SEN every Sunday morning, 8 till 9 a.m. Last year, Daisy Pearce hosted it, and now this year, myself and AFLW Western Bulldogs captain Ellie Blackburn is going to host it with me, which is really exciting. Obviously, we've got the Pancake Parlour on board as a fantastic sponsor of the show for this year, and but it's great to have the Pancake Parlour on board. And so kids will call in, and we'll give away some special $25 Pancake Parlour vouchers each week. Then I've got 2 signed footies to give away. So I've got 1 signed by Ellie Blackburn, which is going to go to a Western Bulldogs supporter. And I've got 1 signed by Steele Sidebottom, which is going to go to a Collingwood Magpies supporter. So that should be good. And then, usually for us anyway, I'm trying to get a special guest to call in for each week. So this week is going to be Hawthorn Hawks captain Tom Mitchell will be calling in for a chat. And then I've got a couple of other guys lined up too, like Nick Hind from Essendon and Steele Sidebottom and a couple of other guys to call in for the kids edition in the coming weeks. So it should be good.
Nah, should be good. Gotta give me a few of the vouchers, mate, if I call in.
Yeah. Matt, call
Yeah.
in on Sunday 1300 736 736.
I might be too old, mate, Max. What's the age limit?
No, there's no age limit on it.
Oh, everyone's a kid, man. That's great.
Yes.
Awesome. To wrap things off, Max. Obviously, I know you're a very, knowledgeable person and love to set goals. So, I guess what's next for you in 2022 and beyond? What are your top three goals? Maybe from a schooling perspective, podcasting perspective, and who knows, career perspective.
From a schooling perspective, I aim to achieve, above 80% or 90% in my grades. I aim to achieve 90% in my grades, which isn't always possible, But I try my hardest to work and to study, and to do homework and things like that. From a podcast perspective, for me, it's to get the best possible guest I can for 100, which is ultimately Josh Giddey for me. So that's in the next couple of weeks to come up. The next few years, just keep doing what I'm doing. Hopefully, get better guests, go a bit international with some of my guests. I'd love to go international with some of my guests. And then also from a career perspective, keep going with SEN. I'd love to explore a couple of opportunities with them. I've got a couple of other opportunities coming up. This NBL one season with commentary with Melbourne Tigers and the Geelong Supercats. So that should be good. And then so in the next few years, I'm just looking to keep going with the podcast. Explore other opportunities for shows and things like that with SEN, and should be good.
No, that's awesome, mate. Max, really appreciate your time for the chat. I'm really grateful actually, because obviously I'm headed towards a similar path to you, and I'm sure we're gonna, meet up at university or whatever we do in the future. And I hope we can stay in touch and be LinkedIn contacts. And maybe work together in the media industry one day.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks so much for having me on, man. I'm so grateful for you to have me on.